When the golden couple of Forrester history finally fractured beyond repair, the silence that followed was more deafening than the loudest scandal. Brooke Logan, once the crown jewel of the Los Angeles fashion empire, found herself abandoned emotionally, drifting in the wake of Ridge Forrester's betrayal, not the first time, but somehow, this time, final. The connection that had once held decades of love, passion, and forgiveness snapped with no warning. And just as she hit rock bottom, as the whispers of humiliation and pity followed her into every hallway of Forrester Creations, he returned. Nick Marone. No announcement. No press release. Just the rumble of a motorcycle and the sudden presence of a ghost long thought buried. Tan, unshaved, and impossibly grounded, Nick stepped into Brooke's life again, not with swagger, but with steadiness. The man who once shook the foundations of her world was back, and this time, he wasn't chasing a fantasy. He was here because she needed someone who didn't see her as an idea. She needed someone who knew the difference between Brooke Logan the woman and Brooke Logan the legend. And Nick had always known that line. The reappearance of Nick ignited a ripple through the Forrester dynasty. The old triangle, Ridge, Brooke, Nick, wasn't just tabloid gold in its day. It had reshaped alliances in the boardroom, on the runway, and in the bedroom. With Ridge and Brooke's relationship publicly imploding, Nick's timing looked suspiciously perfect. Some whispered he'd been waiting, biding time in exile, following Brooke's pain like a predator. But the truth was simpler. Brooke called, even if she didn't realize it. And Nick heard. At first, it was small moments. Lunch on her patio. A ride up the coast. Conversations that didn't revolve around betrayal or image management. Nick offered Brooke something Ridge never could escape. Not from the world, but from herself. He didn't ask her to perform, to shine, or to fix anyone. He asked her to breathe, to sit with him in silence, to cry if she had to. It was real. And she felt it. But Los Angeles is never quiet for long. The press caught wind of their reunion within days. Paparazzi snapped shots of Nick and Brooke walking arm in arm outside Il Giardino. Fashion blogs exploded. The word rebound screamed across headlines. But the most piercing reaction came from within Forrester itself. Ridge. Watching from the shadows, wounded and enraged, he saw not just a man from Brooke's past, but a threat to his legacy. Because unlike every other rival, Nick had history. He had touched Brooke's soul. And now he was back. The tension reignited not only old wounds, but a dormant rivalry that had once held the entire fashion industry hostage. Ridge versus Nick wasn't just personal, it was brand warfare. When Brooke attended a Marone-sponsored fashion gala wearing one of Nick's newly designed evening gowns, a sleek, crimson piece that outshone every Forrester design, that season lines were drawn. Steffi and Thomas saw it as treason. Hope, conflicted but loyal to her mother, refused to condemn her. Ridge? He launched a new campaign within days. A rebirth of Forrester line, intentionally created without Brooke's touch, full of architectural silhouettes, steel accents, and an aggressive message. The House of Forrester stands alone. Nick responded in kind. He reactivated dormant Marone assets, reignited old partnerships, and announced a collaboration with a rising European design house. But the real twist came when he introduced a new line. Phoenix, dedicated to women who have rebuilt themselves from betrayal, grief, and media annihilation. And he made one thing clear. Brooke was his muse. The industry polarized. Influencers, fashion journalists, and celebrities chose sides. The media called it the runway rematch. Interviews resurfaced. Archival footage of past battles replayed on streaming platforms. Sales soared for both camps. What began as personal recovery exploded into a public duel for dominance. And once again, Brooke stood at the epicenter of it all. But this time, she wasn't silent. In a stunning Vanity LA profile, Brooke broke her media silence with a single, searing statement: "I'm not a prize to be won. I'm not a legacy. I'm not a comeback. I am the constant. And I'm done being rewritten." The interview shifted the narrative. Suddenly, it wasn't just Ridge versus Nick. It was Brooke versus the machine that had consumed her for decades. But behind the glare of cameras and boardroom strategies, emotions ran raw. Ridge, watching his hold on Brooke slip, confronted Nick one evening at the marina. No press, no assistants, just the two men who had defined an era. Ridge accused Nick of manipulation, of opportunism, of exploiting Brooke's pain. Nick didn't flinch. "You threw her away. Again. I didn't take her. She chose to get up. And I just didn't walk away this time." For the first time, Ridge had no answer. At the same time, internal tensions at Forrester grew. Steffi, furious over Brooke's perceived betrayal, began pressuring Ridge to remove her entirely from the brand's narrative. Thomas quietly disagreed. He had seen how much Brooke had sacrificed, especially for Hope and Douglas. Meanwhile, Hope herself began collaborating privately with Nick on charity-oriented fashion pieces, further blurring the lines between personal and professional loyalty. The powder keg finally exploded during LA Fashion Week. Both Ridge and Nick scheduled competing shows on the same night. One in Beverly Hills, the other downtown. The city split. Brooke attended both. She opened Ridge's show with a powerful walk that echoed decades of history, then disappeared, only to reemerge later as the final look in Nick's collection, wearing a gown that mirrored the one she wore during their brief wedding years ago. Gasps. Flashbulbs. Chaos. Ridge was livid. Not just humiliated, broken. He confronted Brooke backstage after the show. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just said, "You can't punish me for choosing myself." Nick didn't gloat. He just waited. And when Brooke walked toward him outside the venue, hand in hand, the message was clear. The past wasn't repeating. It was evolving. But even as Nick and Brooke's reconnection deepened, cracks began to show. Old wounds, buried assumptions, the heavy weight of public pressure, it all returned. Brooke found herself questioning whether she was rebuilding something real or just clinging to a lifeline. Nick, for all his good intentions, struggled to stay out of the war he had reignited. And Ridge, now isolated, began to spiral inward, obsessively designing, refusing rest, muttering about fixing the story. The industry took notice. Rumors of Ridge's instability surfaced. Investors grew nervous. And when a Forrester intern leaked a video of Ridge destroying one of Nick's gowns backstage, the internet turned. Suddenly, Nick wasn't the interloper. He was the stable one. The survivor. The grown man. As the season wound down, Brooke made one final move. She bought controlling interest in a startup design incubator. Independent of Forrester. Independent of Marone. She called it Logan, the mission. To empower designers whose stories have been erased, sidelined, or rewritten by corporate power. And in a surprise twist, she appointed both Hope and Paris Buckingham as co-directors. The finale closed with Brooke standing alone on a sunlit balcony, papers in one hand, a glass of wine in the other. Nick stood in the doorway, waiting. She looked at him. No promise. No vow. Just the truth. "I'm not looking to be saved anymore, Nick. I'm looking to lead." And for the first time in decades, she walked away not from Ridge, not from Nick, but into her own future. The fashion world watched, breathless. Because in the bold and the beautiful, love fades, legacies shift, but one truth remains. Never underestimate Brooke Logan when she's finally writing her own story. But in Los Angeles, no chapter ever ends cleanly. As Brooke Logan's new venture, Logan, gained momentum, the industry braced for aftershocks. Her rise wasn't just symbolic. It was seismic. Independent, female-led, and unapologetically anti-legacy, Logan quickly became a magnet for young talent and disenfranchised designers from around the globe. Runways once dominated by Forrester and Marone names began to showcase fresh, rebellious silhouettes. Critics called it the Logan Revolution, and Brooke, once cast as the eternal muse, was now the architect. But power never flows without cost. Ridge, still reeling from her defiance and emotional departure, descended into creative mania. Locked in the Forrester Designs suite for days on end, he sketched without sleep, burned through entire teams, and rejected every attempt by Steffi and Thomas to intervene. The man who once ruled the industry through instinct and passion now operated on pure obsession. When Eric tried to ground him, Ridge snapped, "You let her become bigger than the name. That's on you." The once golden son now viewed Brooke as an adversary, not a loss. Nick, meanwhile, watched Logan rise from the sidelines. He had helped her get back on her feet, supported the vision, even designed a few early concepts, but Brooke's newfound independence left him unmoored. He had expected partnership, maybe even reconciliation. But what he got was a woman no longer tethered to anyone's needs. Nick wasn't bitter yet, but the space Brooke carved for herself began to feel like a wall. Then came the surprise, Rick Forrester. Absent from LA for years, Rick returned quietly and unannounced, drawn back by news of Brooke's solo empire. No press, no drama. Just one question: where do I fit in? Brooke welcomed him with open arms, naming him head of global strategy at Logan. The move shocked everyone, especially Ridge and Eric. With Rick in the fold, Logan wasn't just a brand. It was now a genuine threat to the Forrester dynasty. The tension exploded at the annual LA Fashion Council Summit. Brooke, Rick, and Paris took the stage for a panel on fashion without pedigree, receiving a standing ovation. Later that evening, Ridge stormed into Brooke's green room, not to argue, but to accuse. "You've declared war on your own family." Brooke didn't flinch. "No, Ridge. I'm finally defending myself from it." From that moment forward, all lines of communication were cut. Steffi responded swiftly. She fast-tracked a new Forrester campaign, Heritage Reinvented. She pushed Thomas to lead the line, even as his design instincts began to stray from the Forrester aesthetic. Privately, Thomas admired Logan's vision. Publicly, he played the good soldier. But tension built, especially when Hope, torn between her loyalty to Brooke and her co-parenting obligations, began sneaking away to consult on Logan designs. The conflict ignited one of the fiercest arguments between Steffi and Hope since the days of Liam's love triangle. It ended with Steffi banning Hope from any further influence within Forrester design. Back at Logan, Rick uncovered something disturbing. A confidential Forrester ledger buried within an international tax file. It revealed years of secret licensing deals under Ridge's name, exploiting designs initially credited to Brooke during their early years. The evidence was damning. Rick urged Brooke to go public. Brooke refused at first. She didn't want her legacy to be a weapon. But when Ridge accused her of manipulating Douglas against Thomas in a leaked boardroom recording, Brooke changed her mind. She called a press conference. Calm, composed, surgical. "For decades, I was the face. But behind every photo shoot was a sketchbook. Mine. Today, I'm claiming what was mine from the start." The fallout was immediate. Investors panicked. Ridge was forced into temporary leave. Eric attempted damage control, but the board demanded transparency. Even Steffi couldn't shield her father this time. The foundation of Forrester Creations cracked. Nick, watching Brooke's ascension, grew more distant. He made one last attempt to rekindle their spark, inviting her to Capri for a private getaway, just the two of them. She declined, graciously. But finally, you helped me get back up, Nick. But I'm not running anymore. And I don't want to be held. Heartbroken but resigned, Nick left town again, quietly. And just like that, the final ember of that old triangle finally died out. But LA doesn't rest. In the wake of Ridge's disgrace, a new player emerged, Dominic DeLuca, a ruthless European fashion tycoon with a reputation for hostile takeovers and dark charm. He approached Eric with a proposal: merge Forrester with DeLuca Atelier to restore dignity and strength to the shaken empire. Steffi opposed the idea. Thomas was intrigued. Eric was torn. But the real shock came when Dominic revealed his ace. He had acquired a significant share in Marone Industries and was courting Nick to return as his co-CEO. That's when Brooke stepped back into the spotlight. Knowing DeLuca's history of silencing female creatives and controlling brands through fear, she moved swiftly. She made a counteroffer to buy out DeLuca's Marone holdings. To do that, she needed an investor. Enter Bill Spencer. For years, Bill had circled Brooke. They'd clashed, flirted, fought, forgiven. But now she came to him not for love, but for leverage. He agreed, on one condition: I don't want you, Logan. I want to see you burn the whole damn kingdom down. And I want a front row seat. The deal was done. Logan, now backed by Spencer Global, acquired a silent, controlling stake in Marone, effectively blocking DeLuca's attempt to overtake Forrester. The city reeled. Brooke had gone from muse to mogul to gatekeeper of an empire that once cast her out. The final scenes of the season unfolded in quick succession. Ridge, broken and alone, walking through the now-empty Forrester showroom, staring at a gown Brooke once wore. Nick, back at sea, crumpling a wedding photo before tossing it into the waves. Steffi, facing a crisis of faith, turning to Finn for counsel as she wondered aloud, what if we're the villains in her story? Hope, standing on the Logan rooftop, looking at the city skyline, whispering, Mom, you actually did it. And Brooke, alone, in her office. Lights low. She opens a drawer, pulls out an old Forrester sketchbook, flips through the pages. Every design, every note, every erased name. She closes it, locks it in her safe, and turns toward her vision board. This isn't revenge. It's resurrection. Because in the bold and the beautiful, there are no damsels, no saints. Only survivors who learn to wield the knives once used against them. And Brooke Logan has never been sharper.